can't even with this one. India, an agricultural giant with 1.4 billion people, just pulled off a suicidal urea tender. A life-or-death order for 2.5 million tons of fertilizer hits the table. And suppliers around the world collectively played dead and ran the other way. Even scarier. This baffling move could push 30 million people straight to the brink of famine. Is India digging its own grave or just giving up entirely? Let's get into today's topic. India's suicidal urea tender. On April 3rd of this year, India's state-owned Indian Potash Limited rushed out an emergency tender for 2.5 million tons of urea, with a hard bid deadline of April 15th. Delivery by June 14th. A double red line on both payment and shipping. Keep in mind, this order accounts for a third of India's entire annual urea imports. It's literally a make-or-break deal for this year's spring planting season. Sure, a tender that affects 1.4 billion people's food supply. Being urgent makes sense, but if you need it that badly, don't lowball the price. And yet, the ridiculous price India offered? Just $395 a ton. For context, just 2 months earlier, India's RCF had run another tender, and urea was already going for $508 to $512 a ton. And after the US-Iran conflict blew up, international urea FOB prices by mid-April had skyrocketed to around $750 a ton. So India coming in with that laughable offer was basically treating global suppliers like fools. And it gets even more ridiculous. On top of those terms, India also tried to slash the normal 2-month delivery window down to half the standard timeline. This is happening while the Strait of Hormuz is a tinderbox, and global shipping costs have doubled. Even a miracle worker couldn't pull that off. And on top of all that, India tacked on late delivery penalties and payment terms of 60 days after loading. Were they seriously trying to get something for nothing? The result was exactly what you'd expect. Not a single supplier even bothered. The tender flopped and became a global laughingstock. The truth is, India's urea crisis is entirely self-inflicted. Too busy obsessing over other things. They had zero sense of crisis, and it never even crossed their minds that after the US-Iran conflict erupted, shipping through the Strait of Hormuz would nearly grind to a halt. India depends on the Middle East for 70% of its natural gas, and supply was instantly slashed by 40%. Here's the thing. 95% of India's urea production runs on natural gas. So they were blindsided. Out of 32 urea plants nationwide, 11 shut down completely, and the rest were running at just 55% capacity. According to a UN FAO early warning, as of the end of March, India's urea stockpile was down to just 2.168 million tons, while the safe reserve level for spring planting is 6.5 million tons. They were sitting at just 33.4% of the safety line. In India's northern grain-producing states, farmers already have the money but can't find fertilizer to buy, and they've been taking to the streets in protest. India needs 36 million tons of urea every year, but only produces about 25 million domestically, leaving a gap of nearly 10 million tons every single year that has to be imported. Now, with domestic production gutted and import routes blocked, all they can do is sit there and watch the crisis unfold. Did it never occur to them to build up some strategic reserves? Or take a page from China and not put all their eggs in one basket? China, as the world's #1 urea producer, has always marched to its own drum, using coal-based production. Coal to urea accounts for about 80% of domestic output, with annual production capacity of 74.3 million tons, and a capacity coverage ratio of 105%, plus a comfortable surplus of about 3.3 million tons per year. In past years, exports to India made up over 30% of India's orders. But now, per a March announcement from China's Ministry of Commerce, during the critical spring planting period, urea export quotas are set to 0. Domestic supply comes first. Honestly, if India were truly desperate, couldn't they just pay more and get it done? But India doesn't just run tough tenders. They've been snipping their own lifelines one by one. Every partnership they touch is all about India making money. India spends a dime and don't you dare take any profit home. Chinese companies naturally stopped wanting to play the sucker. Russia is busy filling high-paying European orders. The US goes to the highest bidder. Not even your own mother could help. And with the Middle East barely keeping itself afloat, there are barely any countries left on Earth that can bail India out. This is all the inevitable result of India's chronic strategic short-sightedness and its completely bankrupt commercial reputation. Now, with fertilizer shortages during spring planting, India is projected to add 30 million more people facing famine. The Modi government thought a lowball tender would make great political theater, a way to posture for domestic farmers. Instead, the performance bombed, they got no urea, and exposed gaping holes in national governance. Keep in mind, India already has 200 million people going hungry, ranking 105th on the Global Hunger Index. And yet they keep exporting massive amounts of grain for foreign currency, then turn around and blow it on oil, aircraft carriers, and Rafale jets, generous to a fault while broke. And now things are about to get a whole lot worse.